on traders? It's Johnny here with Trader X. Thank you guys so much for tuning back into the channel. And today I wanted to give you guys another quick update on how my trading went and let you guys know my thoughts on the NASDAQ. But as you guys can see over here, it was a red day for me. I was down $35 and that consisted of trading SQQQ, which is a inverse ETF of the NASDAQ. And so here are my filled orders, right? Like normal, the timestamps on the left, price points on the right, and what I was buying in and out of in the middle. But yeah, to get right into the recap, what I pretty much wanted to go over today was what I thought I did well in my trading, what I could have done better, and then hopefully you guys can take away something from that, right? So ultimately what I saw when I woke up this morning around market open, right around 6:30, so it was right around this area here where we saw this big pop and increase in volume. And during the pre-market hours, this thing was indicating signs that it was selling off, right? It was making these lower highs, lower lows before it ultimately recovered to the middle VWAP before it continues to sell off. But then we saw it actually bounce on the SMA here. So like before right here, where it got rejected by the SMA, what we need to realize when we're day trading is previous resistance levels could become new support levels, right? So once this thing was rejected by the SMA and then actually broke above it, it was actually able to find a support right around this area, right? So it actually ended up curling back up, breaking above the middle VWAP, and then pulled back a bit. And then right at market open, we saw this huge push, right? Before it ultimately pulled back. And so I was down money on the day because I was trading the inverse ETF, right? And you could have still made money trading the inverse ETF by, buying into areas you thought the Nasdaq was overextended and selling out, when it reached closer to the middle VWAP. And that's ultimately what I tried doing today. But as you guys can see, it was very choppy, right? It had a bunch of fake outs today and didn't really want to choose a direction, it wasn't very clear, right? Where the direction was going to be headed. So given it was a choppy day today, I didn't want to put myself in a bad spot, right? So I wasn't using too much money today to trade, and that's why I was able to not, have a huge red day today. So rather than trade with the normal amount I've been trading all week and, try to make money out of this choppy market, that could have potentially made me give back all the profits I had this week, right? So I did a good job of managing my risk today and making sure that I wasn't giving up, a decent amount of the profits that I've worked hard to earn up to this week. And what I could have done better in terms of my trading today was, this thing was clearly had momentum in the morning before it pulled back, right? And then once I saw this bounce again, it should have given me some type of idea that, okay, maybe the market, it will be choppy, but maybe it could be I could make some money getting into TQs, right? As it pulls back to the middle VWAP. And ultimately, I did not end up doing that. I ended up just trying to predict the reversals on the top, and that ended up, biting me in the butt. So as you guys can see, it had a bunch of fake outs today, right? Ton of fake outs, and that ultimately made it very hard on me of trying to predict when this thing was gonna correct itself back to the middle VWAP, right? So for example, say I bought into here after it got rejected into the inverse ETF and this thing continued to sell off, and I was looking to secure my profits closer to the middle VWAP. This thing ended up ultimately making a higher high here, right? So it kind of did some type of fake out. And so that's what I mean when I say that the market is very choppy. And on days like this, it's not the days you really want to use a lot of money, right? It's days where you want to take a step back. You don't even have to trade on days where it's choppy today. And so as you guys can see on the bigger time frame, yesterday was a perfect example of a day that had clear direction, clear patterns, right? The Nasdaq absolutely tanked yesterday and it was making these lower highs and lower lows all day, right? So as you guys can see, it was getting rejected by the EMA continuously all day. So on days like this, when there is clear direction, it would make most sense to use, the full dollar amount that you typically use to day trade. But after days where direction is very clear and it sells off or pushes up, we typically the next day or two or three will see days of, consolidation where it's not really choosing a direction anymore. It's more of like trying to just establish and stay within this general area before it's going to ultimately pick up or sell off even more, right? So that is ultimately why I decided to not, use a big dollar amount today. But as you guys can see, why I saw value in the NASDAQ, potentially getting rejected around the top VWAP is if you take a step back, we have to look at previous patterns and how it's acted in the past to base off how we think it'll act in the future. Doesn't mean it has to happen again, but it's giving us a good indication of, what it's done before, what it could do in the future. So as you guys can see, the Nasdaq has been trading in between this channel here, right? And so as it approaches more oversold levels, it'll eventually pick up to the top and then back to the bottom and then, hopefully back to the top. Now, it doesn't mean it has to, like I said, but there's a good chance it might, given the fact that it's been doing it for the past 2 months, I believe, right? So ultimately, that is why I saw value in the top VWAP here. So as we saw, when it typically approaches these more oversold levels, it'll pick up, right? Have this nice little run where it'll start to pick up and then sell off before it ultimately ends up picking up even more. And so what I saw here was this thing was very oversold. It had its nice little run, right? The past few days, big sell off yesterday. And then today it's a bit choppy, right? So kind of like it did over here where it was getting rejected around the top VWAP. That's ultimately why I saw value in SQs today. But I didn't make money. I actually, in fact, lost money today. So that's a mistake on my part, but it was a mistake I was willing to take, and it was a risk I was willing. There was a certain dollar amount I was willing to risk, right? I wasn't gonna let this thing continue to push up and me just being SQs, just losing my money the whole time, right? That wouldn't be the most effective way to go about this. And so I just want you guys to be aware that if you guys are day trading, especially, it wouldn't hurt to look at these, slightly more relevant time frames. The 1 day, 1 minute is obviously the one that gives you the most up-to-date info, but if you take a step back, it can really help you get a sense of where the true direction is headed. Now, where I think the Nasdaq could be headed, I think this thing could, potentially sell off before it ultimately tries to correct itself, but it doesn't have to do that, right? It can continue to sell off for all we know. As you guys can see, the Nasdaq has been absolutely, aggressively selling off for since the start of April, right? End of March, start of April, it's been completely selling off. And so there is no indication yet that the market's going to recover. We can all hope that we want it to recover, but it doesn't necessarily have to play out that way, right? We don't ever really know where the bottom is, and so we got to make sure we put ourselves in a good position to succeed. And what I mean by that is, yes, the market's pulling back, and if you're really freaking out about it, then it might mean that you have too much in the market invested right now, right? If you can't afford to handle these pullbacks before the market ultimately corrects itself, then you should probably consider reducing your position size or getting out right now, right? Because the market, for all we know, can keep tanking. We don't really know where the bottom is, but when it recovers, right, and it actually starts showing signs of an uptrend, that's when I'm going to start to actually swing trade now. Right now, I haven't been swing trading anything, and it's been, in my best interest to do that, given the fact that the Nasdaq has been bringing everything down with it, right? But once we start to indicate signs of an uptrend, like it did here, where it starts to just aggressively ride the EMA up rather than get rejected by it within this channel here, right? So if we were to see this break above the channel and start to ride the EMA up, that would give me better indications that, okay, the market's starting to, it went from being bearish to it could potentially start to go on a bullish run again. And that is when I will consider swinging stocks like Tesla, Facebook, Amazon, right? But until then, it does not make any sense, in my opinion, to really be, buying into things aggressively, especially. These prices are pretty good right now, right? So if you want to get in lightly, not a bad idea. But if you want to get in aggressively, hoping that you can double or triple your money within a short amount of time, that's really, not setting yourself up for success. But that's ultimately everything I wanted to talk about today. I hope you guys, learned something from what I said and will implement it in your trading. But yeah, let me guys know in the comments if you guys want me to break down any stock at all. I'm more than happy to do it and let you guys know my thoughts. But other than that, if you are new to the channel, we'd really consider or we'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed the video because we are new and growing and it really helps. But yeah, I will be posting a recap for my day trading tomorrow and I hope to see you guys then. Take care and have a good rest of your day.